All right, good morning, everybody. This is Terry and Carla from the Moines user group, and this is our platform app builder study group. And today's topics are going to be on the external objects, record types, and formulas. And our first speaker will be Karthik. You are up first with the external objects, and then I'll take it from there. You'll get to wrap us up for today. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, and Karthik, I'll let you take over, and you are muted.
Yes, yes.
There you go.
Uh, I will share my screen right now.
Great.
So you guys should see my screen. Can someone hall that see
Yes,
my
it's
screen?
yep, it's good.
Cool. Hey, it's so external Salesforce external objects. By default, the name itself says something is external outside of Salesforce. So in order to use this Salesforce external objects feature, we use it with so Salesforce market it as Salesforce Connect. Uh, Most of the unlimited enterprise licenses, uh, everyone will have one external object. I think they gave it one just for testing purpose, I guess. Uh, so we could able to create one external object uh, with Salesforce Connect, or else we need to purchase a separate license for Salesforce Connect to interact. Uh, why Salesforce Connect? To access, display, and integrate data from an external data source in real time. In simpler terms, in order to get data from a different source and to display it in our Salesforce environment along with our other relational data. This helps us to view, search, modify data that's stored outside the Salesforce org, just like how we do today. Uh, let's see what different data of a wide variety of external systems data we can directly use. So for example, some of the things which I found with Salesforce Connect. So one of the advantage of Salesforce Connect is just use that and connect to one of like SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, Sales, other different Salesforce organizations, Office 365 or SharePoint, and so on. By using those connectors that right inside the Salesforce Connect, we can get the data without writing any integration code at all. We get that's why it's a additional expense from Salesforce. When to use Salesforce Connect? Uh, if we need large amount of data that you don't want to copy into Salesforce, and small amounts of data at any one time, and real-time data. So if you know if there is a relational data somewhere else, and if you want to use it, instead of copying it, we can just get it from the external source. And if in enterprises we do have different applications, different systems. So for one specific process, like employee data or something, the HR data is in SAP, but the employee data is in Salesforce. So we can, if any HR related employee data, if we need, we can get it from SAP. Small amounts of data we can also get if easily if we have connectors. And other thing is real time. If we use some ETL processes of loading data in the night job, the data might not be real time. It has to wait for a day to get the latest data. And the obvious question we might get: what's the difference between external objects and custom objects? Access external objects like a list view. So basically, external objects will look like custom objects. Like we can have list views, detail pages, record feeds, custom tabs, and page layouts. Uh, We can also define relationship between external objects and the standard objects to integrate data from different sources. And we can enable charter field on external object pages for collaboration. And in the same way, we can create, edit, delete operations on external objects like create, edit, and delete data or records. So then those are all the things all these things are most common in custom objects. And then what's not existing in the external objects? So if you see this table, on the right hand side, for the external object, data is stored in our so external object data is not stored, so that is different. And uh, sockle queries, is limited, it seems. I did not test it too much how it works. So only the fields which we are showing on our end, maybe those are the fields we can use for sockle queries. And search and sockles, SOSL, something similar. And I forgot sharing. And if you see, one second, sharing is not available. So we have sharing rules. So we cannot set a sharing rule on an external object. When we create an external object, we assign profiles. When we assign a profile to that external object, they can see it if a tab is available. If not, they won't be able to see it. So the other things which they cannot see is formula fields. We cannot create a formula field on an external object. And the same way with workflows and triggers. We cannot trigger or write a trigger on the external object. The obvious reason is data is not inside Salesforce. It's external to Salesforce. And also the charter is limited to only following the records, like feed tracking, but not the field tracking. We cannot track the changes in the field. The reason for that is data is not stored in Salesforce. So an example of a custom object, external object. So if you see in the screenshot, the name one is the standard object account. Sales orders is a external object. So in a business partner, maybe business partner might be a business partner might be an custom object. In a custom object, we have two related lists, related to account and related to sales orders. Sales orders can be any external object from external source like SAP or Microsoft Dynamics. It can be anything, but we can create relationship in the Salesforce. It may. So I said about external objects, we can connect to different external systems. How can we connect? So we do have three kinds of external connections. One is OData 2.0 adapter or OData 4.0 adapter. OData, it's an open data protocol. It's REST-based protocol. An example of OData is, for example, if you have a third-party site, if you want to post all the Netflix titles and Hulu titles, all the series and movies, both Netflix and Hulu provide OData connector endpoint URL to get their active titles of the series, and it's public. We can get it, and we can hook it to our personal blog or anywhere to get that data. In the same way, there's so many any publicly accessible information can be used with OData, not only public, even if it is authenticated too. Even if we want to just share it with a certain party or a business unit, we can also share this OData data by providing them authentication like username and password. We can look into it a little later. And cross-org adapters. connects to the data that's stored in other Salesforce org. So if you need to, for example, you have a finance Salesforce org, and you also have a um, some other customer org, and maybe if any finance related data, if you need to show specific to that customer org, we should able to do it by using this cross org adapter. This cross org adapter is built in with Salesforce Connect, and we just need to provide the other org details and the credentials, like a service account credentials, to pull the data. And custom adapter created via Apex. What if the first option and second option is not accessible? For example, you have a XYZ external system. You have a lot of data in that XYZ external system. So you can build your own Apex connector by using an Apex connector framework. We can create our own adapter, and that adapter, I think the endpoint will be a endpoint URL, and we can use it just like how we use for OData. But it's a custom solution we can build, which will retrieve data from that external system. So before I demo, does anyone have any questions so far?
That's good, Karthik. Go ahead with your demo.
Cool. So I created a couple of examples, but first I will do this. So I should be on the, okay, cool. So first thing first, how to, if you want to connect to an external source. So first we need to create a source. So if you enter external, I guess all of you face the same issue, right? It takes a second for everything in the Lightning to show up in the setup, right? I always feel like, is there any easy way? Is there anything I need to do? But if anyone have ideas, please share. So in the integration section, we do have three things: external data source and external objects and external services. I'm not sure about external services, but in my demo, I'll talk about these two things. First, we'll go to the external data source. In the external data source, generally it will be blank since I already created an order database. If you see this order database, it's Roku app. I found it on Trailhead, so I just copied it here. So if I open that, so if I edit it, you will see all the options. So when we create an external data source, it will ask what type of data source you are creating. Since I already have a Roku URL, and they provided the specification, it's a OData 2.0, so I selected that. So 4.0 is a newest standard. If the external party, if they have an OData connection for 4, then we have to select it. OpenSearch, there are different frameworks for getting data. This is the one, Salesforce Connect Crosswalk, and any simple URL which will provide data. If you have an endpoint, if it provides data, I think we can still use it. So in this example, we are only using orders. And if you see, all these options here are default options. I did not change anything. So some of the important things we need to be considered: the format of the data, how the data comes, format used by OData service to represent resources for the external system. So it has a couple of options: JSON or AtomPub. So for OData 2.0, AtomPub is very common, but JSON is something newer these days if we want to use that. And if you see in the authentication type, I selected anonymous. We can also select per user. So per user comes into the picture if there is already an adapter built. For example, in one of the screenshot I shared, there is SAP, Microsoft Dynamics, and the Office 365. Those were already built. So for that, it's per user. So we, uh, for some of them are free to use with Salesforce Connect. Some of them we have to purchase with them. So I did not look too detail into what needs to be paid, what are free. It's just like marketplace. Then it will be per user. Named principal is, I think we need to provide the specific name, uh, maybe a certificate to access it. And also authentication protocol, we have OAuth 2.0, then we need to provide the authentication provider name, scope, and or else password authentication is provide username and password. So these are different ways to authenticate, means if it is not public, then if it is a secure data, there are different protocols and different ways to get authentication from the external system. And mostly these authentication are set by the external system. And we just need to follow what they provide as instructions to use. For this demo purpose, we are using anonymous uh, and no authentication. Uh, uh, yep. So I'll just cancel it. So after I create this, when I just went down, I already see, not here, I'm so sorry. So once after I create it, you should see a button called validate and sync. When we go there, this external source will already show us all the different objects it is exposing to us. So we don't have to create an external object from the scratch. We can select from one of the objects which it's already giving us to select. So for demo purpose, I selected order details and orders and click sync. When I click sync, it will sync the data and it will also create those two objects. So I do have two objects. One is orders and order database. And if you see, the external data source is orders DB. If I click, it will go to that external data source. Then what I did is I went to, and good that it created the tabs. I don't have to create the tabs again. So I went into orders. So one of the orders is Salesforce, maybe standard orders, but there is another external. This is the one. So this is how the link. So I have an external ID. I do have the display URL. If you see the display URL, this external ID information is coming from this Roku orders service order one. So basically, this one is a query string of the. So this is the like XML format of the data. So if I go back to this external ID, it will give me the details of that order. So it's the order is a customer ID and all these details. And cool. So
Cool.
now I want to go in depth few more things. So this is how we see the external data and external. And one other thing I want to share you guys is, if you see, if I go back to the external object, one of the external object like order details, the API name is appended with X instead of C. So after seeing this, then I realized previously for our custom objects, we do __ C. Basically, C means custom, X means external object. So in the same, but if you see the fields do not have X, the fields do have C, even if it is an external, the field is in Salesforce, but the data is coming from the external object. And one other thing I saw here is, so I will go back to my, the lookup relationships. The external objects can have different types of lookup relationships. I will do a small example. For example, I'll go to this orders. Uh, these fields are already provided by this. So basically, the external system, if it has different fields, and when we are syncing with Salesforce, it's already creating those fields. We don't have to do anything else. Or else maybe Roku app, they developed it just specific for our Salesforce. So I want to show you guys how the lookup fields work. Uh, so for example, I do have a customer ID. So I want to edit this customer ID. Uh, if I want to change this field type, this field has, if you see, there are three lookup relationships. And the first lookup relationship is creates a relationship that links the objects to other objects. This is something we already know in Salesforce. If I need to link a different object in order to get the data from account to contact, I generally use it. The external lookup is something I want to share. Creates a relationship that links this object to an external object. So an external object can also get linked with another external object. For example, maybe I will go back and I will select uh, because the customer ID is linked with the account. So that's an example for a different one. So I will use order ID. So order ID need to link with order details ID. So I want to change this field type to external lookup relation, because we do have two objects. One is order and the other one is order details. So I'll go to next. So it's related to, now I want to get order details for this specific order.
And Karthik,
So
if you can, I don't know how much more you have, but you'll want to try to wrap up here pretty soon if you can.
sure, cool.
That's good stuff.
I will quickly do this
Okay.
because my intent is to share you guys that we can relate external and internal data. So I'm already opening it. Cool. And I'll go back and I'll also do customer ID, change field type. Here I want to use indirect lookup. The indirect lookup creates a relation that links this external object to a standard or custom object. So uh, I want to link this with one of our uh, standard or custom. If you see, we can only see account here. This org has other, there many objects, standard and custom, but why only it's showing account? The reason is account is the only object having a field called external ID. That's why it's showing in the list. So in the account, there is only one external ID, customer ID, so I'm linking it to it. Cool. So I want to go back to orders. I want to refresh this screen. So I don't have anything related because there is no lookup. I saw the data, 1 second. This dongle is coming in. I have one case, this one, 2020. So see, previously there is an ID here. Now it's related, it's connected to the edge communication because of the lookup. And also if I go back to the related, so it does not have any order details, but I need to find if there is any order which have order details to show the related. Or else maybe I do not, I need to update the page layout to show orders. So what happened is, if you guys remember, I clicked that sync. When I click that when I clicked that sync in the data source, it removed all my updates I made. I did not realize that, and I just realized that in the demo. So I already updated my page layouts and to show you guys, when I synced it, what it did is it removed everything on those objects. It freshly loaded everything. So so we need to be careful if we are planning to do those lookup relationships or updating the page layouts of the external object. Maybe we should not click that. Uh, yep, I think I'm done.
Very good stuff. That was really good.
Mm,
There's a lot there that I had forgotten about on how that was configured. So that
mm,
was really really well done.
yep. Mm,
Fantastic. Awesome. All right. Well, I will take over next, and we'll talk about record types, and um, then Matt, do you have a sense of how much time you'll need? And I'll try to
mm.
make, I'll try to keep.
Mine's pretty short. I just did a bunch of practice questions just to be kind of similar to what we'll see on the test. So
Okay.
we could do
Awesome.
mine in less than 20 for sure.
Hey
Okay.
guys, I have to disconnect shortly for another meeting. I'm so
Okay.
sorry. And
No worries. That's all right. Thanks.
uh,
Thanks again, Karthik.
yeah,
Excellent job.
no problem, no problem.
All right. Desktop two. Okay. So mine is on record types. And so record types let you offer users, let's, record types you offer users on the same object. Um, when you might do it would be if you have a different business process, pick list values, or page layouts that you want to do. And so I've got an example there of two sales divisions and hardware and consulting. And you want your consulting group to see a different view than you would your um, consulting group. So in that scenario, you might want to leverage record types. And in that particular example, the lead source has different values in the pick list. So that's one of the ways you can leverage record types. When you're considering record types, there's several things that you want to think about. If a profile is associated to a single record type, then that user will not be prompted for which type of record to create. The master record type name is a reserved word, so you cannot create a record type called master. Um, don't use record types to control access to records. So the example there is that your profile will uh, will govern which record types a person can create, but it doesn't control what they can see. So um, I can see any records that my permissions allow me to see, regardless of the record type. Profiles can be associated with one or more record types. And then if you're dealing with person accounts, the person account record type allows that contact to be available on the account, and allows the account to be used as if it were a contact. So basically it merges the account and the contact together. You do have to enable person accounts with Salesforce's assistance in order for that to happen. And more considerations here. When a user converts a lead, the new account and contact and opportunity records will use their default record type. The Lightning conversion does give you the ability to select a different record type if you choose to. When a user clones a record, a new record type, uh, the new record has the record type of the clone record. However, if that user doesn't have access to that record type, then it will use that user's default record type. When you create a new record type without cloning an existing, the new record type automatically includes the master pick list value. So what that one is referring to is when we're creating new record types, if we don't tell it to match an existing record type, then all of the values in your pick list will be inherited from that master or the original um, values. I thought this was an interesting one. I hadn't heard this before, but it recommended not to exceed 200 record types per org, which I would hope we wouldn't. That's quite a few. All right, when we're deactivating record types, deactivating does not remove it from a user's profiles or their permission set. It means no new records can be created with that record type. So existing records and page layout assignments remain unchanged. To deactivate all record types in an object, we first have to remove all the record type assignments from the profiles. It's a pain in the butt, but it is the process, and you will get told if you try to do it wrong. It will correct you and tell you what you need to do and why you're doing that. So, and with that, I've got a whole series of questions too that I thought might be good for us to go through. So, Universal Containers has both a sales and service division. They would like different page layouts for their accounts, for their account view. Which of the following by itself is required to make this possible? Roles, profiles, record types, permission sets. I'll let you guys unmute and tell me what you think.
I would say C, record types.
Record types. All right.
Nope.
Profiles. Good. I like people guessing. It's good, and it gives us something to talk about. So let's think about that one.
Sales and service division.
So universal. The key word there is by itself. Which one by itself is required to make it possible? So you can have different page layouts just based off of a person's profile. You can also do it by record type as well, but with profiles.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
All right, record types are assigned probably based on which of the following, not two, based on which of the following? Roles, profiles, page layouts, permission sets. Record types are assigned.
Profiles.
Profiles. Yes. Universal Containers has multiple record types on the account object. Tim, a member of customer service, has indicated that no one on his team is prompted to select the record type when they create a new account. What would be the reason for that behavior?
C.
C. Yeah.
Yep, C. I agree. All right. A new pick list has been added to the lead source field. Users can see the field but cannot see the new value. What would be a possible reason?
B, the new pick list value wasn't assigned to a record type.
All right. Very good. Very good.
I have made that mistake. I know that one well.
We all have.
Sure, that is true. Record types are required for which of the following? Person accounts, business processes, sharing rules, multiple page layouts. Choose two.
D.
Okay. Any other guesses?
Yeah.
B,
B. Okay.
Yep. I concur.
Person.
Oh.
Yeah, it's A. I wasn't sure if I should say
Page
anything.
layouts. Say something, Carla.
Yeah.
Multiple page layouts, like we talked about before, would be profiles can do that too.
Right.
So they're not required.
Right.
Record types are not required for multiple page layouts.
That's just the way we do it.
Sure.
Well, often that is the case. You know, a lot of times when we are doing our page assignments, it is both the profile and record type, and
Yeah.
there's a good reason often to do it that way. But the profile it doesn't. I mean, the profile by itself can still have different page layouts.
Mhm.
All right, Samantha cloned an account record and noticed that the new account's record type is not the same as the original account's record type. What might be the reason for that? I like my spelling when I go back and reread things. It's like, oh, that's not grammatically right. Samantha, don't use. Uh, any guesses on this one? Oh, and I have it. I actually am going to tell you the answer to this because it's been
Yeah,
actually spelled wrong.
I
This
wondered about that.
doesn't.
That makes more sense.
That would then be the correct answer is C. Doesn't. All right. Good, good. Any questions on record types? I suspect we all use them quite often. So
I had a question. I've never used the person account before. I probably have like a case to use it with what I'm doing now. Is there any impact to reporting when you use a mix of accounts and person accounts? Or do they just all roll up the same way?
it'll act like it's an account.
Okay.
So it's going to behave very similar
Okay.
to what you're used
And you
to.
can you can have a mix of regular accounts and person accounts.
That's what the record type is mandatory for.
Yes.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And often, in fact, what you'll see in your custom object manager is an object specifically called person accounts. And you'll be able to manage your person account record types there. So you could technically have more than one person account type as well. And then your regular account object will have all your record types for your more like your business or B2B type records. When you're doing custom fields on person accounts, you'll do those off of the contact object, which is a little bit non-intuitive, but
We do ours on the account object.
yeah, if you do it on the account object, that works as well. But then they do show up on the account object for your, even if it's a person account, they're available there. But the difference that you'll see if you do it on the contact is that it will still roll up to the account, but it'll have, instead of a _C, it'll be _PC for person custom. So a little different. You can do it, Meredith, you can do it on either way.
I would like to explore that more. I didn't know that. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, I'll stop sharing, Matt, and let you take over.
Okay. And I'll stop my video so you're not looking at me while I'm doing this. Okay. And please let me know when you can see my screen.
That's good.
Okay. So this is formula fields, pretty straightforward. Just talking about formula fields, what they do, and then some practice questions. When you can use formula fields, you can use formula fields in a lot of different places, everywhere from fields to all the different automated processes, assignments and validations and escalations and every other kind of rule, and also within reports. So formula fields are very common and can be used in a lot of different places. When you create a new, or when you're within an object, you want to create a new field, you select formula. Once you select formula, these are your options as far as your different formats for the formula. It can come back as a checkbox, currency, date, time, number, percent, text, or just time. If you select any of these three, currency, number, and percent, you also need to select how many decimal places you want, and these three are lumped together in other places as well. So once you've picked a formula field and you pick what format you want it to be in, these three also need decimal place. When you get in there, you can choose either a simple formula or advanced formula. The Trailhead page suggested to always use advanced formula, which they seem.
I would suggest that too. I'm not even sure why simple exists. It's
Agreed.
kind of worthless.
Yeah.
Yeah, just go
Sure.
to
Within the formula, there's 5 different types of elements. You can put in a literal value, which is just text or a number, a field reference, which is on that object or a cross object, a function, an operator, and if you want, you can add comments as well. So as you go into the advanced formula, first thing you do, you pick a field. That's the field reference. And this one's on opportunity field, so you can see you can go off the opportunity. You can go off of several other different items, or within the opportunity, you could go off of the account, and then you'd have all the account fields as well. So you start by inserting a field. Then you have an operator, pretty standard operators, math operators, logic operators. And then, let's see, not sure if you can see this. Then on the last thing here is you have a list of functions. There's a pretty good cheat sheet on the Salesforce page, on the Trailhead page, if you want a cheat sheet of all the built-in functions, or your own function. And then lastly, once you've got something put in, some combination of fields, operators, literal numbers, and functions, you can check syntax down at the bottom and make sure that it does not create any errors. One last thing, and it's actually at the bottom below check syntax. If you are using these 3 fields again, if you're doing currency, number, or percent, you need a decimal place, and you also need to determine how to handle blanks. So for your formula fields, you can either treat blanks as zeros or as blanks. So just determining what you're going to do when there's nothing inputted there. And at that point, you've got a formula. Couple slides here. Are you guys able to see this on my right side of my screen? Like, are you seeing yourself, Terry?
I see your full screen.
Okay, so you can. Okay, so I won't keep moving this. So a couple pages of notes that came from the additional reading pages. It seems like this stuff tends to be what the questions are based on. So I'm going to just kind of go through everything on these 2 slides, because it seems like a lot of times they reference this kind of stuff. Max characters for formula, 3,900. That includes all the spaces and commas and comments and everything else that you put in there. If you, for some reason, need more than 3,900 characters in one formula, you could just make, I mean, that's a pretty long formula. You could make a smaller formula that feeds into it, and you could reference that. And then you could go beyond the 3,900 limit. When you display max characters is 1,300. Again, that's a lot of characters for a formula.
Hey, Matt, did they specifically say that you can go over that if you use multiple formula fields?
Yes, it actually made it as a suggestion that if you have a really long formula, you could make some portion of the formula a separate formula and then have this one reference that other one.
Okay, I thought that was a max regardless of how you leverage other formula fields, so that's good to know.
Terry, you might be thinking of the compile size.
Oh, maybe that's it.
If you're referencing multiple formulas together, and the compile size is too big,
You're
that will,
right.
yeah.
That is what I was
Not the
saying.
characters. Yep.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
So a couple other little tidbits. Default value formulas for the record type must reference fields in that record type instead of a cross-reference to another object. Formulas for approvals or rules can reference fields on other objects. So if you're having an approval process. In formulas, you can't use long text area, encrypted, or description fields. And you can't delete a field if it is referenced in a formula. You'll just get an error when you try and delete it. So those are all on formulas. another page specifically on how formulas are impacted in roll-up summary fields, which again, this led into a couple of the practice questions. So custom formula fields referencing leads or contacts not supported. Can't use cross-object formula fields in a summary roll-up. So it has to be on the same object. And it can't use functions that derive values on the fly, such as date, now, today, anything that's basically referencing a time period. You can't use any of those in a roll-up summary field. If the formula does have an error, so if you were trying to roll up 100 fields or 100 records and 10 of them had an error, for example, those 10 will be counted in the count roll-up field. So if you're just counting the number, even the ones with errors will count, but it will not be included with sum, min, or max roll-up summary fields. So something up in there. Last thing, they had a little section on power of one. This is a way to look at unique values for a summary report. So you could look at unique users or unique accounts within a group of opportunities. So you create a formula field where you literally, the entire formula, just the field equals 1. And by using this power of one field, this is one of the use cases for using formulas, then you can determine unique users. So if you had a list of opportunities, you could determine the number of unique users or unique accounts within a group of opportunities. I guess it's a fairly common. There was one suggestion on there that some people use this unique users field on every object, just in case they want to use it later on. And it's pretty easy to do. Just make a field, set it equal to 1, and you got it. And you can do a lot of summaries on this field on reports as well, just by adding it. So that's really all I got on the formulas before going into the practice questions. Anybody, any thoughts or questions before I jump into those? Okay. So I will put these up, and then anyone who wants to jump in, jump for it. Which data type, the first question, which data type is not available in formula fields? Currency, checkbox, date, or long text area?
Long text area.
Bingo. Okay, certification aid, I guess that's a company, wants a red flag to appear on the detail page if a case is older than 10 days. Which field type is most appropriate to achieve this?
Formula field.
All right. I think they're trying to trick you with the checkbox there. Okay. Which of the following statements is not correct about report formulas? They can be displayed at all summary levels, a grand summary, or a specific grouping. Results can be numbers, percentages, or currencies. Limited functions can be used, and results can show up to 18 decimal points.
I have a guess, but I don't know if I'm right. I'm gonna guess it's the results can show up to 18 decimal points, but I'm not.
That was my guess too, Terry.
I actually guessed that when I took the test, because I thought maybe that would require 19 spots to do 18 decimal
Yeah, that's
points.
what I was thinking too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to take the practice test twice, so I didn't have my wrong answer to this PowerPoint.
Awesome.
It said limited functions, any type of formula can be used.
Interesting.
Hmm.
That was my second option, but I honestly I don't do reports that often. So
Right.
it's probably my weakest area of Salesforce.
Okay, sales director at Cosmic Solutions would like to see the sum of quantities of all associated opportunity products of a particular type displayed on the opportunity detail page. Which Salesforce feature can be utilized for this requirement?
Anybody?
Go ahead, Carla.
Roll up summary?
Yes. So I think I also had to do that one twice.
Yeah, that's a great example of,
Mhm.
of really understanding the capability of the different types of fields there.
Mhm.
Because it would have been real easy to guess formula fields on that one, but a formula field doesn't do a sum of. I mean, it doesn't do a roll up from another object like that. So
Yeah, exactly. And this is just an explanation. Some of them have explanations, but you just summed it up real quick.
oh yeah, there you go. Sorry.
That's way better than that long thing. Stock symbol is a custom field on the account object. What is the best way to make this field appear on the contact page layout?
Right, no brave people.
Everyone's quiet.
Very quiet. Yeah.
It would be formula field.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's another simple one where the entire formula is just this field equals the reference to the other field
Mhm.
and will be considered cross object.
Yeah, and that worked also because the contact is the child of the account.
Mhm.
So it allows you to go up that tree with a formula field or
Mhm.
up the branch of records.
Perfect. Okay. I think just a couple more. Formula fields cannot be used for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, creating new records, bringing information from other object records, or combining fields content.
Creating new records.
Yeah.
All right. So that one's good. So it shows some of the ways you can do that down there. But yep, can't create a new record with a formula. Okay, this is interesting. So this was on a practice test, and it is an actual writing a formula. So this is interesting. Certification aid wants a red flag to appear on the detail page if an account has not been updated in 1 year. Which formula can be used in a formula field to show this?
The first one.
Yep. Kind of like a difference between now and today. And if you haven't seen it recently, now includes a time as well.
Yeah, I just wrote a formula like that. Like, well, 3 months ago, but
Perfect. Okay. Certification aid created a formula field on the course object and wants to summarize it on the master certification object. Under which conditions can the formula field be used in the roll-up summary field?
The middle two.
Yep. That was from their notes on summary field. So can't use the on-the-fly date references and can't use crass objects when you're doing a roll-up summary field. Oh, sorry. Certification aid created a formula field on a child object and wants to reference it in a roll-up summary field on a parent. Will the roll-up summary object field work?
That's tricky.
I like the
Yeah.
second one. I'm trying to figure out the other one.
This one's worded kind of weird. to be
Yeah. Is it the first two?
Is it the first? Yeah, I was thinking the first
It
two.
is.
They say the
Yeah.
same thing, I think.
Right. They're just opposites, but they're the same.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. All right. Well, that's all the questions I had. I used the Trailhead page and then the links to the additional info as well.
Awesome.
Very well done. Thank you.
Stop sharing.
All right, guys. So next week will be again on Thursday, and for our speakers, Tyler, who I believe wasn't able to make it today. Scott's also, none of our presenters are on the call today for next week. So I'll follow up to make sure that they are good to go. If any of them aren't able to, and Meredith, I think you're not going to be here next week, if I remember. Is that
I
right?
don't think, I
Or
think
was
I'll be here next week.
You will? Okay. I was thinking I moved somebody around. I thought it was you in order to accommodate schedules. But so if one of them are not able to make it, I'll let you know if I need you to jump in on one of the topics for next week. But
Okay, yeah, that works.
all right, very good. I think with that, if you guys don't have any questions, I'll let you go.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, thanks guys. See you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.